I'll be your server. I'm only smiling because I want you to tip me as much as possible.
Oh, what do I recommend? The restaurant next door. It's delicious.
Hi there, I'm super hungover. Can I get you some waters?
I'm laughing at your dumb joke purely out of obligation.
Oh, you brought your baby to the restaurant? That's gonna make my life a nightmare.
Here's your food. I hope you don't notice I snagged a few fries off your plate.
I'm telling you I'm gonna go ask the chef, but I'm really gonna go in the kitchen, count to 10, come back and say no.
Hi guys, this plate is hot. I'm just trying to tough it out.
Labor costing. Labor is one of, or if not the most expensive thing that we ever have in our business. Especially in the hospitality industry, it's key. This is our biggest thing that we have to offer. How do we make this work? How do we work out how we get the best benefits from everything to make sure that the employees are happy, the bosses are happy, the owners are happy, and the customers and the guests are happy as well? So welcome to Labor Costing. This is Chef Hawks. We are jumping into chapter number 10 in our ProStart 2 course here. Let's jump on it. Labor costs are the overall expenses that a business has to pay for in order to pay the employees and keep the employees happy and in business. And so these can be involving fixed and variable costs within this. And so with our labor costs, we have controllable and semi-variable costs that we have to try and flex between to try and make sure that the company stays afloat. They're generally tied to sales, the amount of business that's coming in the door. Normally, for most businesses, about a third of our sales revenue, the money that comes in, is spent on labor. Typically, a restaurant operates on a very slim profit margin of only 2 to 6%. So that can go into the red or into the black very quickly and easily. Full-time employees are very often salaried, and so they will be a fixed cost. This would include managers as well. We have to pay them if we've agreed to pay them that salary, whether we get one customer come in the door today or if we have 1,000 customers come in the door. Part-time employees are almost always variable costs because they're paid on an hourly basis. If we're planning for having a busy day today, we would plan to have more of those individuals in. If we know it's going to be a quieter day, then we would have fewer of them in, and we would just stay with our salaried fixed cost employees. We have to deal, when we're budgeting for our labor, with fluctuations in our sales. If we have too few staff in, and we have a lot of customers come in at the same time, we're going to offer a poor quality product because the kitchen won't be staffed accurately, and we'll have poor service because the staff will be too stretched between too many tables. If we have too many staff, then it's money wasted by the business, and that can, as we know, where a business only has between 2 and 6% profit margins that actually happen for most restaurants, that can be the difference between staying in business or going out of business. So our labor costs fit into our budget and our budgeting processes. So how do we achieve our budgeted profit? Well, a big part of that is where we'll start looking at sales projections. This is where we take a look at our history of how well we've done. If we have certain days of the week, days of the month, or days of the year that are much busier than others, and we start analyzing those so that we can start working out how many sales we're going to possibly have in any given day, and then so in that case, how much can we afford to budget for our labor costs? So we have to look at our overall operations costs and labor costs to be able to work these things out accurately. Management's predictions are never going to be 100% accurate because that's almost impossible for most businesses to be able to have. But a good budget will help us to stay on target. If that means that we need to make some cuts one month, or if we need to expand our labor on another month, then it helps us to know where we are and where we need to go. There are certain factors which contribute to our labor costs. So our business volume. If we have a dining room just like the one in the picture here, then this is great because we know we have significant volumes of business coming in the door. So this is the sales during that specific given time. It could be a week span, it might be a month span, and this can have a huge impact on our labor costs. Employee turnover can be a significant issue. So that's employee turnover is the number of employees that are hired to fill that one position. If you hired someone in January and in February they left, then we have to have a second person to take their place. If that person then stays till June, then we need to hire a third person to take that place. And then if that person then leaves in September, we have to hire a fourth person. If just to maintain that one position for that year, if we had to hire 4 people every single time, this is going to have significant costs involved that could have been avoided if we were able to hold on to that one person that whole year long. So higher turnover equals higher labor costs because we have to advertise for that position. That costs money. We have to interview, so a manager has to take time out of their day to be able to interview that person. And then after that, once the person starts, they have to be trained. They may be a professional at their job, but they have to be trained specifically to your company's business. And then after that, it will be some time before that person hits peak productivity. Then they're not going to be able to be up to speed at the same level with accuracy and speed as all of the other employees who have been there for some time. So that's where you have this lag time, and overall that's going to give us higher labor costs if we have to keep hiring and training those individuals in that same job. Our quality standards can really play into how much our labor costs will be. If you take a look at the top photograph here, this is a McDonald's restaurant, very typical. It has hard surfaces in most areas because the main priority here for staffing is that you have someone who will go through to clean up any scraps that are left and wipe the tables down to clean the actual surfaces. But then if you look down on the bottom photograph, this is the Ritz in London and this is their main dining room. What's involved here is that you have servers who will come through and they will set each individual table with every single piece of silverware, glass and chinaware that's needed, with nice fresh tablecloths. And they will then be serving every single part of their meal so that the customer doesn't have to do a thing along their dining experience. And this could include a nice Gueridon cart that you see here, where this gentleman is actually producing food in the dining room, putting on a show for the customers. This would have dramatically higher labor costs and a much higher skill level from the labor that's working in there. So those expenses have to be worked out when we're working out our pricing and availability for our customers to be able to come in and enjoy the experience, depending upon what level and where you are in the marketplace. Operational standards can also lead to higher labor costs as well. We have certain specifications for our products. You take a look at the photographs here on the top right. That photograph is a wonderful looking salad which took a professional to put together and to artistically create. The one on the bottom, well, that's still food on a plate, but it's not something that you'll be able to charge high dollar for because it was kind of thrown on the plate. You can also have an issue where you may have wasted products as well, which can increase your food costs if you don't have the right individuals taking care of the food and beverage products at the right time in the right place. This can also increase our labor costs too. So every manager who is working out how we're going to schedule all of our employees has several different things they have to bear in mind. So our hourly staff, they are going to be scheduled according to our anticipated sales. If we have a much busier day coming up, then we're going to need to have more staff on. Well, that's kind of a no-brainer, right? But then you also have fixed costs involved in there as well. So we have salaried managers. Well, we're going to have to pay them regardless as to our business. But at the same time, another fixed cost is that if we have our doors open, we must have service staff, we must have kitchen staff in order to be able to operate, even if we have a very quiet day. This is what we would call a skeleton staff. This is the minimum requirements that a restaurant will need to have in order to be operational at any given time. And so this is part of our fixed cost. Our variable costs are where we can change the amount of staffing that we have coming in depending upon the sales. And so we have to make sure that we have staff to cover all of our demand, whether we're busy or going quieter. We have to do our scheduling depending upon the revenue that we're currently earning, the expected revenue that we're hoping for, And this is all worked out by our historical sales records so that we can understand certain times of the day, certain days of the week and the month and the year when we expect to be busier or quieter. So we have a couple of rules that we have to abide by when it comes to scheduling. So our projected sales increases would be that we would need to increase our employees. If we have sales that are going to be lower on our projections, then we would need to decrease the number of employees. For doing this, we would start off with a master schedule. This is so that we can actually understand from a base level what the anticipation is there. And so this would involve having a spreadsheet which would have a template on for our master schedule that would show the number of people needed for each position and each time period within the day that the restaurant is open and operational. We don't place names on here because at this stage we're just looking to place out all of the needs and requirements of the restaurant as opposed to what specific staff we're going to place in which specific areas. So this would also have changes with our sales projections where we would have to be able to adjust depending upon our busier times and our quieter times too. Let's take a look now at a sample master schedule which would be fairly typical for a small restaurant. So we have to have a host or a hostess. As we look down all the job titles here, we have 3 servers that we would see that would be the minimum of what we would need to operate the restaurant, 2 bartenders, a couple of people manning the grill, and then someone manning the fryer. And then we need to have a couple of dish and pot washers to be able to take care of the cleanliness and hygiene of the restaurant as well. And so if we take a look at the host or the hostess, so on Monday we would need to have someone from 9 till 5 while the restaurant is open. And so that's a full 8 hours. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, going all the way through to Sunday, exactly the same. So then with our servers, we have 3 servers that are taking care of different positions here. The first we would have from 9 till 3. This person would start on setting things up. And then the next server comes in at 10 o'clock. This person would help to do the setup, and they would also leave at 3 o'clock. This would be around the close-up time of when the busiest time in our restaurant lunch service would be. And then we'd have another server who would join us right around 11 o'clock. This server would come in at 11 because then they would help with the busiest time during lunch from about 11:30 until about 2:30, when that busiest period would be done. They would also stay a little later so that they would cover any late arrivals just finishing up the afternoon in our restaurant. This would give us full coverage by having 3 staff, 3 servers there during the busiest time period. But then that way, in the morning to set up, we don't necessarily have to have all 3 on. And in the late evening, it's going to be quiet. So we're not going to need to have 3 people on. This way, we can end up just having a smaller number of hours rather than having everyone in from 9 until 5 and making an excess of labor that we don't necessarily need at all those times. For the bartenders, again, we would have someone come in early to set up, and then we would have the second one come in at noon. This way, from the noon till 2 period, the busiest time for the bar, we would have double coverage from both bartenders, and then the second bartender would stick around later to cover the later, quieter time and closing up and cleaning up. This way, everything is covered for that full 8-hour shift, but by having 2 bartenders for only 5 hours each, and also at the same time, both of them being there during the busiest time period. The same idea then goes for the grill, and then for the fry chef. So these people would then be around for the busiest time period at lunchtime and being able to move off after that. The dishwashers, we have someone come in from the very beginning to make sure that they're opening up the shift, and so that there's coverage there for keeping everything clean. And then we'd have a second dishwasher and pot washer who would arrive at noon to take care of the busiest lunch period and then finish up and clean up at the end. When it comes to scheduling, we would then look at our crew schedule. So this is where we're actually going to be using our sales projections. We're going to chart those out so we're understanding the kind of business that's going to be coming in the door, and so how much we can afford and how much we need to have good coverage for all aspects of our restaurant. With this one, we're now going to be placing the employee names on there. We're going to have days and times that they will be specifically working so that the employees will know exactly when they're expected to be working. We would use our master schedule as a template so that we know where to begin. We would have to make sure that we're flexible, and this would be the employees understanding that they need to be flexible, and also management needing to be flexible as well. We'd have to be able to deal with last-minute changes, last-minute scheduling operations, where we would have to adjust to large parties coming in, and additional sales coming in, or possibly if something's happening in the local vicinity that would actually dampen down business, we may need to lower our expectations. We must make sure that we maintain two-way communication between the business and the employees. We can't expect the employees to know what's on a manager's mind on any given time of the day. If that manager is thinking about reducing staffing, they need to make sure that they keep their staff aware of all this, because they're planning their own personal budgets at home. They're also planning out their own personal days. So we need to make sure we have scheduling policies that benefit both sides. We have to be able to allow for adjustments for staff, but we have to have parameters too. We can't have staff coming to us indicating that they need to be off next week when it's Sunday evening and the next schedule is starting the following day. Generally, you would have possibly a couple of weeks' notice that needs to be given by employees if they're going to be planning on taking vacations. Obviously, if someone is sick, then that's a different issue that you have to deal with. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes as well. So this is a typical scheduling, a crew schedule that we would actually issue to our staff. And so as you can see, we have our basic shifts are all set in here. But so now Rachel knows, as the hostess, that she is expected to be working from 9 to 5 all the way through on this schedule. Our server, Bob, he's going to be working on this schedule. Our server, Rick, this is his schedule. So this is where we can actually show our crew exactly when they're going to be working. We must have contingency plans, just as we do with everything else within our restaurant, because no one knows what might be coming, and so we have to plan for all eventualities. So we have to be able to remain efficient and productive when any kind of crisis may come up. We may have adverse conditions we have to work with, like power outages, weather issues, and also employee absences too. We build contingency plans in restaurants and hotels so that way, with all these different eventualities coming along, we can plan for it and we can adjust to it and be nimble to it, which is vital. So we want to cross-train employees. What does that mean? Well, that might mean that a server, rather than just knowing that position and that role, can also be trained up to work behind the bar, or maybe to be the host or hostess for the day as well. So this is perfect for us if we can make sure that we have this set up, because then that way we can work to whatever needs we have if certain staff members are off on any given day. Also, as part of this, we would want to identify shift leaders. So this is someone who can train new employees to the standards and directives that we're looking for to maintain quality in our establishment. These individuals can also take a lead role. And so that's great, because if you do have possibly a manager or a supervisor who may be off on any given day, that individual may be able to take on a lead role in a small part of that business in order for you to be able to flex and take care of different issues that might be coming up. On-call employees are also vital to what we need to operate with flexibility, because on any given day we may have an employee call out sick, or whose parents or kids or something are out sick and they need to care for them. And so we have to be able to adjust to that, because we can't just tell our customers, I'm sorry, we're just short-staffed. So we would have employees who are on call. This is someone who we can call in at fairly last minute to let them work a shift. So all of these different things coming together help us lead to happier crews and contented management, because the operation is working much better. We're able to produce much lower labor costs because we're adjusting to what is needed at certain time frames in the day. And also, hopefully, we're lowering our turnover, and we're making sure that we don't have negligence and we don't have theft issues happening with our business as well. And we'll hopefully have our productivity rising as well, which overall will lead to a much better operation.
To have a profitable business, you need to keep your labor costs under control. Profit margins can be pretty slim in restaurant and food service operations, usually only about 2 to 6%. Because of those low margins, an increase or decrease in labor costs can have a major impact on your bottom line. And every manager or owner wants the bottom line to show a profit. Labor is a semi-variable cost, which means it's a cost made up of both unchanging and changing cost elements. Changing elements in any budget situation require careful consideration. Knowing what factors contribute to labor costs can help save the bottom line. Business volume has a direct impact on labor costs. The amount of sales an operation has goes up and down. In turn, the labor costs go up and down in proportion to the sales volume. Basically, more sales means more people are needed to work. Fewer sales means that fewer people are needed. Another factor directly influencing labor cost is employee turnover. This is the number of employees hired to fill one position in a year's time. When a position cannot stay filled, the process starts over, repeating the cycle for finding, hiring, and training a new person to do the job. Typically, the higher the turnover rate for an operation, the higher the labor cost. This is because it takes time and money to hire and train new staff. Quality standards also affect labor costs. These are the specifications of the operation for products and service, such as being able to perform or create something at a certain level. Things like the type of menu, number of staff, and the skill levels required to meet the needs of the operation relate to quality standards. For example, some dishes require a lot of time, skill, and attention to make. This results in a need for more time, a higher skill level, more people, and a higher labor cost for the operation. This also relates to the next factor, operational standards. These are the specifications for an operation. This means that the operation as a whole has a standardized way of doing something. So, if an employee prepares an item that doesn't meet the operational standard for how it is supposed to look or taste, that item must be redone until the standard is met. This can cost a lot of time and money. Wasted product increases food costs and makes the operation less productive, which increases labor costs. It is an important part of the management function to make sure that the labor cost is in line. Knowing what factors contribute to labor costs can make achieving budget goals a reality.
As we learned, labor costs in the restaurant industry is huge. It's a big chunk, about a third of our expense. But by controlling it well, we can make sure we have a happy employee. We can make sure we have good management and happy management. We can make sure the owners are happy, and overall, all of our customers and guests are all happy as well. So, if you have any questions, please let me know. I look forward to seeing you all in the kitchen. Cheers!